What happened when a hiker's solo trek turned into a life-or-death struggle in the wild? One wrong step, a rushing river, and everything changed. From footprints that led to a hidden sanctuary to a silent guardian guiding him to safety, this encounter revealed a side of Bigfoot no one expected. Stay with us, because what happened next will leave you speechless. A trail that holds more than footprints. A thin veil of early morning fog curled between the towering pines as the narrow mountain trail woke beneath the first flicker of sunlight. The forest had a strange way of greeting those who stepped into its territory, as if the trees themselves were studying the newcomer with quiet interest. Hiking in this region always carried a whisper of risk, not because of wild animals alone, but because of the many stories shared in hushed voices at campfires. The path ahead stretched deeper than the eye could follow, but for one hiker, the silence felt heavier than usual. A distant echo drifted through the trees, gentle at first, then fading into the branches above. While many would chalk it up to birds or shifting winds, the forest locals often spoke of unusual patterns in the echoes, patterns too deliberate to dismiss. Some said the sounds marked the presence of something massive that moved only at dawn, when the mist thinned just enough to hide an entire figure. This morning, the hiker paused to listen, unsure whether the sound was natural or something far more deliberate. A scattering of pine needles fell from an overhead branch, disturbed by something unseen. The forest rarely revealed what moved within it, but the sudden rustle felt timed, almost observational. The hiker looked up, searching the branches for animals, though nothing perched there. The silence that followed felt thoughtful rather than empty, as if the forest was silently weighing something about the lone traveler passing through its territory. A sharp scent of damp moss filled the air as the trail curved into a shaded corridor. The deeper the hiker walked, the more the world behind him seemed to fall away. Many experienced hikers describe this section of the forest as a place where time seemed to stretch. The trees grew thicker, their trunks wider, and the ground felt soft beneath every step. Yet the hiker could not shake the feeling of being watched, an instinct humans have learned to heed for thousands of years. A cluster of rocks ahead bore faint scratches along their surface. They were far too high to be made by mountain goats and too deep to be made by casual campers. Some believed they were territorial markings left by a creature few had ever seen. Others insisted they were nothing more than weathered scars. But the hiker, though unaware of the stories, paused to examine them with an uneasy curiosity. A sudden gust of wind swept through the branches, carrying with it an earthy smell mixed with something unfamiliar. It was not the odor of bear, elk, or coyote. It felt heavier, older, and strangely sentient. The hiker brushed it off as forest humidity, yet a subtle instinct whispered that he should remain alert. Somewhere between the trees, something breathed in rhythm with the forest itself. A pair of distant wood knocks echoed across the valley, rhythmic and firm. Experienced trackers in the area regarded such knocks with respect, noting they rarely matched natural occurrences. Some believed them to be communication signals, exchanged by something large with the intelligence to create patterned sound. The hiker hesitated, unsure whether to continue or turn back. But the pull of curiosity and adventure pushed him forward. A final bend in the trail brought him closer to the river, where sunlight shimmered against the water. The forest seemed to exhale as he approached the clearing, almost as if it knew what would come next. He felt a sudden shift in the air, an unspoken tension that suggested he was no longer alone in the wilderness. What unseen force was quietly watching his every step, waiting for the moment he would need it most? Stay with us as the mystery deepens. When calm water turns deadly. The river welcomed him with a strange quiet, as if the current itself were holding its breath. The hiker stepped closer, drawn by the shimmer of morning light gliding across the surface. The forest behind him felt impossibly still. Even the birds had paused their calls. Something in the air carried an alertness he could not yet understand, but the beauty of the water pulled him forward with gentle confidence. A thin patch of soil crumbled at the edge of the bank as he leaned in to look at the reflection floating over the surface. The ground felt soft from the night's dew, but he misjudged its stability. Before he could shift his weight back, the entire section beneath his boots gave way. The earth broke open without warning, spilling him into the freezing current with violent speed. A rush of icy water swallowed his breath the moment he hit the river. The shock felt like 1,000 needles pressing into his skin at once. Disoriented, he flailed against the pull of the current, unsure which direction would lead him back to the surface. His ears roared with the sound of rushing water as he fought to keep his head above it. A jagged cluster of rocks loomed downstream, their edges sharp enough to tear through fabric and skin. The current dragged him directly toward them, spinning his body with every surge. He tried to paddle sideways, tried to slow the force carrying him forward, but the river was far stronger than his panic-filled attempts to resist it. A pocket of air reached his lungs as he briefly broke the surface, but the river immediately twisted him under again. The weight of the water pressed against his chest, making each breath feel impossible. He stretched his hand upward in blind hope, but the water swallowed his arm before he could touch anything that might save him. A sudden pull at his backpack yanked him sideways. He did not see the source. He only felt the overwhelming force dragging him in a direction opposite the current. At first he thought he had struck a submerged branch, but branches do not grip. Branches do not hold on, and branches do not lift a full-grown human from the heart of a raging river. A surge of strength beyond human capability lifted his upper body above the water. He gasped for air, choking as the river gushed from his lungs. His feet scraped against something firm, yet whatever held him remained silent. There was no human voice, no shouted instruction, no sign of struggle. Only an unshakable grip guiding him toward the safety of the riverbank. A final heave threw him onto the muddy edge where grass and soil met the river. His vision blurred as he crawled forward, desperate to get solid ground beneath his hands. Behind him, the water continued racing, uncaring that it had nearly claimed another life. He coughed until his lungs burned, pushing himself farther from the edge before collapsing against the earth. A looming shadow passed across his blurred vision, blocking the glow of sunlight for a single moment. He blinked slowly, trying to focus through the dizziness. The shape was tall, broader than any man, and moving with a deliberate rhythm that felt too controlled to belong to a wandering animal. Before he could raise his head to see clearly, the shadow withdrew, stepping soundlessly away from the river. A faint trail of water droplets led from where he lay toward the trees, each drop spaced with the measured stride of something enormous. His heartbeat quickened as he realized the pattern did not match footsteps of any creature he had learned about. The presence he sensed earlier had not been imagined. It had been waiting. What kind of being had the strength to pull a drowning man from a river and vanish before he could even look upon it? Come with us to explore the hidden corners of the story. The giant silhouette nobody believes in. A trembling breath steadied his lungs as he lifted his head from the damp soil. The trail of water droplets ahead glistened like a path laid by something that moved with surprising intention. He wiped the river from his eyes, trying to force his vision to clear, but the forest still wavered in a haze of shock and exhaustion. Yet even through the blur, he sensed that the presence he had felt earlier had not left him entirely. It lingered somewhere within the trees, patient and watchful. A gentle rustle from the forest floor broke the uneasy quiet around him. It was not the quick darting of a deer or the heavy steps of a bear. The movement stretched slowly, almost cautiously, as if the creature wanted him to know it was there, but did not want to frighten him. The hiker pushed himself to sit upright, each muscle filled with the weight of cold water and fear. Still, curiosity nudged him to look toward the sound. A towering outline emerged between two redwood trunks. It stood motionless, its massive shape blending with the shadows that clung to the forest floor. The creature did not step forward, but its silhouette alone commanded the space around it. Broad shoulders rose above the ferns, and long limbs hung in a restful stance rather than one prepared to strike. The hiker squinted, hoping the shape would resolve into something familiar, but nothing he had ever learned about matched the figure before him. A faint shimmer of light from the broken canopy above revealed a portion of its hair. Thick strands hung down its arms, dark enough to absorb the weak sunlight, but textured enough to show movement each time a breeze touched them. No wild animal in these mountains carried hair that long. The hiker's pulse quickened, not from fear but from disbelief. The creature was real. It was standing only several paces away. A low exhale drifted from the figure, deep and steady. The sound held no aggression. If anything, it resembled the careful sigh of something assessing the situation with intelligent calm. The hiker froze, not out of terror, but from a strange sense of being evaluated, as though the creature wanted to confirm he had survived. Its stillness felt oddly protective, as if leaving had not been an option until he was fully out of danger. A slow step shifted the creature into a beam of sunlight. For the first time he caught a glimpse of its eyes. They were dark, reflective, and unsettlingly expressive. Instead of wildness, they held something closer to thought. The creature tilted its head slightly, acknowledging him in a manner no known animal would. The hiker felt a connection form in that brief moment, a silent exchange that passed between two beings who should never have crossed paths. A deep vibration rippled through the ground as the creature shifted its weight. It seemed ready to move on, but not in panic. Its posture carried certainty, as though it expected him to understand that it would not remain in the open for long. Another step pulled it deeper into the dim forest light, its enormous form gliding between the trees with an ease that defied its size. A final pause stopped it beside a moss-covered boulder. The creature turned its head just enough to look back at him again. There was no noise, no growl or call, only a deliberate quiet that felt deliberate. Then, without any sign of struggle or urgency, it stepped fully into the shadows, disappearing so completely that the forest seemed to close around the space it had occupied. What kind of life did this towering being live, hidden so perfectly that only near death would a human ever glimpse it? Let us guide you into what no one expected. Footprints that lead to an unmarked sanctuary. The hiker's pulse quickened as he traced the enormous footprints that disappeared into the dense underbrush. Each step seemed deliberate, as though the creature wanted to guide him along a precise path. Moss-covered roots curled around the impressions, suggesting that these tracks were no recent creation, but part of a routine well established over time. The forest around him began to feel almost unnatural, the way light danced through the leaves in intricate geometric patterns he had never noticed before. As he ventured deeper, he realized the temperature had shifted. The air held a gentle warmth, carrying hints of wildflowers and earth that were not native to this region. Birds he had never seen flitted from tree to tree, their feathers shimmering in shades that seemed almost otherworldly. Every sound, from the rustle of leaves to the distant rush of a stream, carried a clarity that suggested the forest itself was attuned to the presence of a careful, intelligent inhabitant. The trees grew in patterns that defied the usual order of the woods. Trunks twisted in spirals, and branches formed archways, as if sculpted with intention. It was not chaotic, but purposefully arranged. Fallen logs had been stripped of bark and stacked neatly beside them, and small clearings appeared to serve specific, though mysterious, functions. The hiker realized he had stumbled into a space meticulously shaped over years, a sanctuary hidden from human eyes, untouched and protected. Signs of life were subtle but undeniable. Stones were worn smooth along narrow pathways, suggesting frequent travel by a large, powerful being. Scattered fruits had been partially eaten with precision, leaving no waste behind. Tiny fire pits, now cold, hinted at a method of preparing food or perhaps a ritual long forgotten by civilization. There were even crude carvings on some trees, resembling symbols, but defying any known language. Each clue deepened the sense that he had crossed into the private world of a creature far more thoughtful than he could have imagined. As he paused to examine a mound of carefully arranged branches, he felt a presence nearby, not threatening but observant, like a guardian silently evaluating him. His heart slowed as he understood the implications. This was not merely a home, but a refuge built with deliberate care, a place that could endure centuries without interference. The thought that such intelligence had gone unseen for generations left him awestruck and unsettled at the same time. Every instinct told him to turn back, yet curiosity pushed him forward. He began to notice patterns in the undergrowth, markers that seemed to indicate boundaries and safe zones, almost as if the forest itself was under the control of a sentient being. The hiker realized he was not just observing nature, he was witnessing an ecosystem molded by a mind that existed in harmony with it. It raised questions about what other secrets the forest might conceal and whether he was meant to uncover them. With the sun filtering through the canopy in golden shafts, he continued along the path, aware that every footprint was part of a silent invitation. Each step seemed to ask, how much did the world truly know about what lived beyond its awareness, and how many hidden sanctuaries waited silently, untouched by humans? The hiker felt a thrill unlike anything he had experienced, a mix of fear and wonder that propelled him forward. Could this creature be the guardian of an entire world that had remained hidden for centuries? Stay with us to know the mysterious bundle left behind. The hiker's eyes caught a glint of color among the dense greenery. Curiosity drove him closer, and there, nestled atop a bed of moss, lay a small bundle unlike anything he had expected. It was carefully arranged, each element seemingly chosen with precision. Forest plants with fragrant leaves, smooth stones worn by water, and a shallow collection of crystal-clear water were all wrapped within a leaf pouch. The craftsmanship suggested hands, massive hands, but with a delicate touch he had never imagined. He knelt, wary but fascinated, sensing a quiet intelligence behind the offering. The arrangement was functional as much as it was intentional. The plants were edible, and the water sat in a depression perfectly shaped to keep it clean. He realized the bundle contained exactly what someone struggling with exhaustion, cold, and shock would need. It was a gesture that transcended communication, a silent bridge between species. He wondered how a creature could anticipate human vulnerabilities so intuitively. The hiker's fingers brushed the bundle, and he noticed subtle details that suggested understanding beyond instinct. The leaves were not just wrapped, they were layered to preserve warmth. Stones were selected for their smoothness, perhaps to massage aching muscles or to serve as markers. Even the moss beneath the bundle appeared freshly arranged, softening the surface as if to ensure comfort. Each component spoke of a mind capable of observation, planning, and empathy, on a scale he had never associated with legends. While he examined the items, a sudden rustle reminded him that he was not alone. The forest felt alive with intention. Every bird call, every shifting branch seemed to underscore the presence of the unseen guardian. His heartbeat matched the rhythm of this strange living domain. The bundle was more than a gift, it was a message. Someone was watching over him, aware of his struggles, and determined to offer aid without direct contact. He couldn't help but marvel at the intelligence behind this action. To survive in such an isolated wilderness, Bigfoot, or whoever had left the bundle, must have learned to read more than physical signs. It was as if the creature could feel the hiker's fatigue, anticipate his needs, and provide solutions without a word or gesture. The precision suggested thousands of observations, a pattern repeated and refined over time. He questioned how much of the forest's hidden life moved with this kind of quiet intention. Curiosity turned into a deeper sense of respect. The hiker realized he was witnessing a level of thought and care that blurred the line between human and myth. Every element of the bundle reinforced the idea that this creature was not just a recluse of the forest, but a guardian capable of planning and compassion. He wondered what other forms of silent assistance might have gone unnoticed, lives perhaps spared without anyone ever knowing. As he carefully returned the bundle to its original place, he felt a subtle shift in the forest's energy. He sensed guidance, a gentle push to continue deeper along the path that the footprints had laid out. It was clear the encounter was not merely happenstance. The bundle had been a signpost, a test of perception, and a preparation for what lay ahead. In the face of true danger, could a creature known for its foresight and care also serve as a steadfast protector? Come with us to explore the hidden corners of this story. A silent warning, hidden in the trees. The hiker carefully rose from the mossy clearing, the bundle still vivid in his mind. His attention, however, was quickly drawn to subtle changes in the forest around him. Broken twigs, bent grasses, and faintly disturbed soil indicated the presence of a large predator, one that moved with patience and precision. A low, almost imperceptible growl carried through the trees, so quiet that only someone attuned to the forest could detect it. He froze, the hairs on his neck standing on end. It was then he noticed movement among the shadows. A dark shape prowled near the tree line, eyes glinting with predatory awareness. Instinct screamed for him to run, yet another force held him in place. From the corner of his vision, he saw a massive silhouette appear between him and the predator. Bigfoot stood there, blocking the path the animal would have taken. The creature's posture was commanding, deliberate, and unmistakably protective. Without a sound, it made clear that the hiker's safety was being prioritized above its own exposure to danger. The predator hesitated, circling, sniffing the air, clearly aware that something far larger than itself had stepped into the clearing. Bigfoot shifted slightly, guiding the unseen threat toward a path away from the hiker. Each motion was calculated, a combination of strength and subtle signaling. The hiker realized he was witnessing an act of intelligence and bravery unlike anything described in myths. The creature was not merely avoiding humans, it was actively safeguarding them. As adrenaline coursed through him, the hiker's senses sharpened. He noticed markings on nearby trees, scratches etched high above that could only have been made by a massive claw. They were directional, almost as if the guardian wanted him to follow a safer route through the forest. Every instinct told him to obey these silent cues, and every step along the path confirmed that he was being led away from danger. The forest had become a map, and the footprints, scratches, and subtle shifts in the foliage were guides placed by a thoughtful, intelligent being. A sudden gust stirred leaves around his feet, and he caught a glimpse of Bigfoot's gaze. There was a deliberate intensity in its eyes, a mix of warning and assurance. He sensed the creature had weighed the risk, understood the stakes, and chosen intervention over indifference. The hiker's fear shifted into awe as he began to comprehend the scale of responsibility the creature had assumed, not just for him, but possibly for countless others who had unwittingly wandered into this wilderness. Each step deeper into the forest now carried a weight of gratitude and wonder. The hiker was learning that survival here was not simply a matter of luck, but of being recognized and aided by an entity that had spent lifetimes perfecting observation, protection, and timing. The silent warning had become a lesson in trust, teaching him to read signs he had never noticed before: a bent branch, a disturbed patch of earth, a low-hanging shadow. As he continued along the protected path, the hiker's mind raced with questions. How many times had Bigfoot intervened unseen? How many strangers had walked through these woods, unaware of the silent guardian watching over them? The realization that his safety had been orchestrated without a word left him both humbled and exhilarated. What if a creature, both secretive and powerful, has been silently watching over countless humans all along? Let us guide you into what no one expected. A farewell that raises new questions. The forest began to thin as the hiker approached the edge of the trees. Light spilled in from the open meadow beyond, and for the first time since entering the hidden sanctuary, he felt the pull of the world outside. Yet, before he could turn, movement at the periphery of his vision caused him to pause. Bigfoot had emerged from the shadows, massive and imposing, yet with a presence that radiated calm. The creature stood still, its gaze fixed on him with a clarity that suggested recognition and understanding far beyond instinct. The hiker's chest tightened as he realized the encounter was reaching its conclusion. Every step he had taken, every trail he had followed, had led him to this moment. Bigfoot lifted a massive hand slowly, deliberately, in a gesture that felt almost ceremonial. It was neither threatening nor casual, but intentional, like a final reassurance. The gesture seemed to communicate a mixture of farewell, protection, and silent affirmation that he had been guided safely through a perilous journey that most would never survive. A soft rustle of leaves echoed through the clearing as the creature shifted, and the hiker noticed details he had overlooked in earlier encounters. The fur along its shoulders shimmered in the sunlight, revealing subtle patterns that seemed almost ornamental. There were faint scars along its forearms and hands, suggesting battles fought in solitude, encounters with predators, or perhaps the hidden dangers of this isolated forest. Each mark told a story of endurance, survival, and resilience, a record of a life lived completely apart from human eyes, yet intimately intertwined with the rhythms of the wilderness. He stepped closer, drawn by a mix of gratitude and fascination, and observed the creature's eyes, dark, intelligent, and layered with emotion. There was a profound awareness in those eyes, an understanding that extended beyond mere recognition of his presence. The hiker felt a strange connection, as though the creature knew not just who he was, but who he could become after leaving this place. It was as if every encounter, every guided step, and every silent intervention had been meant to transform him in ways he could not yet comprehend. Around them, the forest seemed to respond. A gentle wind stirred the tall grass at the clearing's edge, carrying the scent of wildflowers and earth. Birds circled overhead, their calls soft and measured, as though marking the passage of this rare interaction. Even the sunlight seemed to hold its warmth longer, illuminating the scene in a way that made the moment feel sacred. The hiker was acutely aware that he was witnessing something extraordinary, something ephemeral, and yet deeply rooted in the natural order of the forest. Bigfoot shifted its weight, turning slightly as if preparing to vanish back into the hidden realm from which it had emerged. The hiker understood then that this farewell was not simply an ending, it was a passage. The creature's presence had altered his perception of the wilderness, of myth, and of what might exist in the spaces humans rarely explore. Every detail of the journey, from footprints to hidden sanctuaries, from silent guidance to protective gestures, culminated in this quiet, almost solemn acknowledgement of the bond they had formed, however brief. As the first edge of the meadow opened fully before him, the hiker paused and looked back one last time. Bigfoot remained still, framed by the forest behind it, a figure of strength, wisdom, and mystery. There was no need for words. The entire journey had been a conversation in silence, one of trust, observation, and mutual recognition. In that moment, the hiker understood that the forest had a guardian, a presence that had watched over countless lives, acting without fanfare, intervention without expectation, and protection without acknowledgement. Turning finally toward the open meadow, he carried with him a profound sense of wonder and a renewed respect for the hidden world around him. Questions still lingered. How many others had passed through these woods, guided without knowing it? How long had this creature watched, learned, and protected? Could anyone else ever glimpse such a secret? He walked on, changed, aware that the story he had become part of was rare, almost impossible to convey, yet unforgettable in its impact. As the hiker leaves the forest, Bigfoot's presence lingers in his mind. The memory of the creature, the hidden sanctuary, and its silent protection leaves a lasting impression, reminding him that some mysteries are meant to be experienced even if never fully seen by the world. Were you amazed by how the mysterious creature intervened to save the hiker and the secret world hidden deep in the forest? Tell us which part of the story shocked you the most.